Welcome to the state of emergency.
Welcome to a special episode of Chet and Jon's Reassuringly Finite Gaming Playlist. My name is Chet Roivas. With me, as usual, is John Denton.
Meet me in the hotel.
Okay. You were in a hotel, aren't you?
I'm in a hotel, so apologies if I sound terrible.
Right, okay. I don't know what to say, but basically last year we did two Christmas specials. We did our favourite games of the year and we did the underrated games of 2012. I think we really felt like we wanted to do the underrated games of 2012 because there were so many games that got unjustly got a kicking. We should have done something different this year because I've struggled to find... I mean, did you have trouble finding 10?
Well, a little bit, but there was no... I mean, we're underselling something that we're expecting people to now listen to. It's going to be a really good podcast, but we just... Hopefully it'll be good.
Yeah, fingers crossed. But yeah, anyway, it just, I don't know, we just had this discussion and realised that
I felt like this year has gone by in like a flash, like a blink of an eye. Whereas last year I can even remember all the games like Syndicate and Lollipop Chainsaw and other ones that I felt kind of passionate about to a degree and felt got a bit of an unfair kicking, like you say. But I don't know, no, there is still stuff that, yeah.
I've still got some on my list that I want to champion, and the other thing is, I'm sure I said something like this, or one of us said something like this last year. The whole concept of having a list of underrated games is complete nonsense because depending on who you are and where you are, anything's underrated.
It's bollocks. Please don't think that we think that we're serious. It's just a fun thing to talk about for us.
Yeah, and they're inevitably. I mean, there was an underrated list on IGN today, the underrated games of the year, and one of them was Gone Home, and I was like, isn't that didn't that break records, sales records and stuff? That's what I mean.
It's like universally praised.
Exactly, it's critically regarded and it's sold a fuckload. So I mean, this is what I mean. It's all about ridiculous perception. So this shouldn't be called underrated games of the year. It should be called
Chet and Jon have a chat about a load of shit
that we want to maybe champion and. I don't know. Let's just get out of the fucking way, shall we? Go on. What's your number 10?
Right, my number 10 is Wii Sports U. Is that what it's called? I don't know what it's called. Wii Sports on the Wii U.
Yeah.
Recently, a lot of people have been talking up the Wii U because obviously Mario 3D World has come out. Now, I haven't played Mario 3D World, but I know it's going to be amazing. I'm going to play it this Christmas. And it's become almost cool to talk up the Wii U in the last few weeks, which is fine, whatever. I get why that happens. But in all of the talk about the Wii U being cool and the games that are cool on Wii U, I can't remember anybody talking about this, which is actually a fun, obviously incredibly fun game put into HD. And when originally Wii Sports came out on the Wii and I brought it home to my then brand new HD TV, I couldn't help but feel a little bit upset when it was so grainy and stretched out, even with a composite component cable. I think a component cable. It didn't look how I wanted it to look, and all I ever wanted it to look was sharp. It didn't have to have any detail or anything like that. All I ever wanted it to look was sharp. That's what I have now, Wii Sports U. I'm going to call it that. I don't know what it's called. And the bowling is still tremendous. The tennis is fun. It's downloadable. The pricing's interesting. It's good. Nobody's talking about it. I mean, I haven't heard more than about 3 people talk about it all year. But, it's fucking Wii Sports. It's one of the most important games of all time.
Yeah, the biggest selling game ever in history. Bowling is still amazing, one of the best games ever. Don't you think they've made it? I mean, the Wii Motion Plus has not helped tennis. It's much more... It's too difficult.
Yeah, I like it.
Well, I like it. I just don't love it. Whereas I love bowling, and bowling is worth £8 of anyone's money. I'm looking forward to what's left: boxing, baseball, and golf. Golf.
Yeah,
I'm all over golf.
Baseball. That's the beauty of Wii Sports. It seems to be there's no like universal one that everybody loves. It just seems to be you pick and choose or whatever.
True that. Okay. Well, yeah, that's a decent pick. I've got the first 2, and I'll probably pick up the others as they arrive.
Yeah.
Did you buy? Have you got both of those then?
I've got bowling. I haven't got tennis.
All right, we'll have to have a go at some time. Although it doesn't support WeChat. Not that either of us have WeChat headsets, so it doesn't make any difference anyway.
Yeah, we could just do Skype or something. Who cares? Let's just have a bowl.
True that. Okay. All right. Well, anyway, my number 10 is Fuse.
It's not. I saw that on your list, and I thought he's not. I bet he does it.
You saw that on my list. How did you see my list?
Not your list of 10, like all the lists of the ones on the website.
All right. Yeah, look, it's not an amazing game. It really isn't, but it got a load of 5 out of 10s. And within the framework of a game that feels like everybody involved with it didn't want to be making it, they do some really interesting things. The two that I cited when I spoke about it months ago, I still stand by. The AI will harass you if you attack them. So you need to end up directing your co-op partners. That's the other thing. It's hard as nails on single player. It is a 4-player co-op game, and it is almost pointless playing it on your own. If they'd have brought this out, and you could pay, 4 of you could buy it for 20 quid a pop or 10 quid a pop. It would have been a significant success. As it was one of the biggest flops ever. But yeah, the really really hardcore AI and the really cool system where the length of time that you were downed equated to how long it took for you to be to get gotten up by your squad mates, which meant you had to use strategy when more than one of your squad mates was downed. Small ideas perhaps, and it was a murky looking game. Took place entirely in corridors, and it owed so much of a debt to Gears. I mean, it was just Gears reskinned. All of the enemies were the same. Some of the weapons were the same. I just liked it. I just thought it didn't deserve the 5 out of 10s. Maybe 6s. 1 point off. I mean, it wasn't great, but I don't know. I felt like it needed standing up for back then, and so here I am.
Yeah. Well, I was a bit harsh on it just then, and I've never played it, which is a really ignorant thing to do. But it's just an easy game to kick. But it's
expensive. Exactly. Insomniac, and it's expensive.
Yes.
That's not a reason to love it. I'm just saying that it's it is a blockbuster still, although people wrote it off as sort of a B project. But it was a lot of money went in it. Yeah,
it did, and it was a completely different game before, and they changed it all. But yeah, never mind. At least they're still going. I'm glad it didn't end up shutting them down or whatever.
Yeah.
Talking of teams that are hopefully still going, my number 9 is from Platinum Games, and it's Metal Gear Rising, which I was umming and ahhing about even putting in this list because obviously it did well in reviews, and it might creep into my top 20 games of the year, in fact. But it just felt like it came and went, and now it doesn't really get the recognition it deserved. It wasn't perfect. All the backgrounds and stuff were shit, and I can understand how people didn't quite understand the combat at first. But if you got it, and it wasn't hugely difficult to get, I thought it's definitely up there with some of the finest character action combat, or whatever you want to call that genre, with some truly brilliant boss fights. A fucking wank boss fight. I've just remembered the music. In the end, you were just like me. That's one of the worst songs ever. And then you're basically fighting some guy that looks like he belongs in an office, but he's ripped. I don't know what that was all about, but before that, when you're fighting the standard bosses in one-on-one combat, the guy by the road in the desert, and then you've got the guy who's I think he might be called Mistral or something, and he splits into all the different parts. I mean, that's absolutely fantastic. I always meant to go back and play through it again on a harder difficulty level, and I don't even have the game anymore. And I had the debug version, in fact, when I played it. And now, with next gen and everything like that, it's going to be tough to pull out the old machines. And it's just not going to happen, which is a shame. But it was actually a bit of a cracker.
Yeah, it was. I don't know if I'd call it underrated, but I know what you mean about the fact that it just kind of. Yeah, the way it did kind of vanish, and I didn't really feel compelled to go back to it, despite pretty much loving it. But I remember I felt it sort of dragged a bit at the end. But
yeah.
It was a cool game. All the DLC is free now as well, so I'm gonna have to stick that back on at some point.
Oh, no way.
Yeah, Konami made all of that DLC free around the time when it was free on PS Plus. So yeah, I'll have to go back. Okay, all right, my number 9 is a game called Bridgy Jones on iOS. Now, I think this was quite well received, and I think it sold quite well. The problem is with iOS games is that sales figures are rarely bandied around, and the turnover of iOS games is so fast. I mean, there's not so much a flavour of the month, there's a flavour of the day sometimes. iOS games, they come and go. So it felt to me like it wasn't given a fair shake when it might well have done. It's an incredibly simple game. You build a bridge from A to B, and it has to be structurally sound, otherwise you end up losing the cargo on the way. It's really high pressure, and it has the immediacy of an action game. And it was just a really terrific little iOS game that I remember being completely madly in love with for at least 2 weeks. Really good looking. The physics were perfect. I don't know why. Again, this is a weird situation we're in. I feel obliged to stick up for it, although it could have been the biggest selling iOS game in history for all I fucking know. But Bridgy Jones, it was 69 pence. Pick it up.
What a name.
What a shit name. That is a shit title.
I don't know. It makes me think about Bridges and Bridget Jones. So it makes me think of everything that I should need to think about for a game about that.
Well said.
My number 8 is Lego City Undercover, which I found in my drawer when I was looking for something else, and I forgot it even existed. But it was actually quite good on Wii U. Again, not necessarily underrated. In fact, in many ways, before it came out, it was being overrated. It was being hyped up as almost like the saviour of the Wii U by some people at some points. But it just ended up being a very funny kind of all-right open-world game with some excellent mission ideas, a lot of classic Lego, that half puzzling, half just piecing everything together for less the obvious turn of phrase. But the main thing, it was just funny. It lampooned movies, it lampooned open world games, it lampooned all sorts of stuff, and it was just extremely charming. Unfortunately, it made the Wii U look like a rickety piece of shit because it's not exactly a beautiful game, and it really struggled. The frame rate was terrible, the loading times were crushing, and we've seen now that the Wii U can easily handle something like this, but it just wasn't very well optimized. And it's a strange game because it had a lot of potential, and it always felt like it was a shame that it was just stuck on a console that at the time had sold about 25 units. But if you have picked up a Wii U and you see this game for 10 quid or something like that, I'd definitely recommend it. And if you've got kids, but then it doesn't have the co-op like all the other Lego games, which is a real disappointment.
Yeah,
but,
that is a shame.
If you've got a kid that's old enough to just, 6-year-old or something like that, they'll probably love just driving around the city and find it loads of fun. And then for the grown-ups, it's funny enough and compelling enough to be worth playing through. So a thoroughly decent effort and a sort of forgotten once kind of poster boy for what the Wii U was going to be at one point, and now kind of a forgotten little gem.
Yeah, well, I think when they first announced it, wherever it was it during a Nintendo Direct or E3?
I think it might have been at the E3 where they talked about everything.
Yeah, when I saw that, I was one of the people who just thought, oh, that looks like the game of the year, Grand Theft Auto Legoland.
Yeah, like Lego GTA.
Yeah,
but it didn't. But it isn't.
Yeah, that's what I've heard. It's not quite that.
Have you played it?
No, I still haven't played it. I mean,
I'll give it to you because I forgot I had it.
All right, I ain't going to say no to that.
Yeah, sweet.
Good. Well played. All right, my number 8 is Ryse, Son of Rome on the Xbox One. I've spoken about this
that was going to appear at some point.
Yeah, I won't speak about it again. I spoke about it recently. It's aside from Forza, I think of all the sort of first-party launch games, it's the finest. It's really repetitive, as I've said before, and I doubt it will hold up. Do launch games ever hold up a few months beyond the launch for console? Almost certainly not. But I will take this all day long over Killzone and Knack. I mean, as launch titles go, having just finished Killzone and being just kind of flummoxed by how terrible it was, and ditto Knack, obviously. Those two games are very pretty, and both of them are very frustrating, and at points very, very poorly designed. Ryse is very pretty and very fucking dim. I mean, it's brazenly stupid, and it is only a modest success, but at least it's a fucking success. And I enjoyed it, truly enjoyed it, and I think it's a great. If you want to feel good about having just shelled out 400 and God knows what on an Xbox One, it's a great way to bring out the best in it. Yeah,
as we're not going to talk about Killzone for a few weeks, we might as well do it very, very quickly. I'm playing it as well, as you know, and all I wanted, I haven't played Ryse, but all I wanted Killzone to be was what Ryse clearly is: dumb, big, pretty, loud. Get it done in 8 hours, never think about it again. But Killzone's actually fucking crap.
Yeah,
I can't believe how crap so much of it is. It's like a Frogger platforming nightmare. And I'm looking forward to basically kicking it, giving it a bit of a fucking knee in the ribs in a couple of weeks when we do it properly. Because I can't, it's baffling. That game's baffling. But I do actually want to play Ryse. I almost definitely will play it when I do end up with an Xbox One.
Well, I don't know whether. I mean, it depends how far down the line you go.
I think that'll be February or March. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure it'll still hold up then. It's just a laugh. It's dumb. I enjoyed it.
Yeah. Just some dumb. Oh, that'll do me for a few hours.
Yeah, true that. And on the, well, we'll talk about Killzone in a few weeks, but Christ Almighty, I mean, I was awed, frankly, about how poor that game was. I mean, I've liked almost every Killzone game. That was a fucking stinker.
Yeah, I just agony in parts, agony. I prefer Knack, and that's genuine.
I think. Do you know what? I don't know. I think I might as well.
Fuck.
Yeah.
I'm looking forward to doing that properly. Anyway, so my number 7 is Super Amazing Wagon Adventure, a game again that has been well received and also technically is from the previous year, but it came out on PC this year and with the Turbo Edition, and that's when I first played it, and that's when I think it got a little bit more press. Anyway, it's not that this game has been slated by anybody. I've never really heard anybody have a bad word to say about it. I've just never really heard anybody talk about it. And that's a shame, because this is the year, 2013 has been the year where people have talked extensively about indie games. You've quit Twitter, but I've not really been on it today, so I've been out and about and busy. But apparently Rab Florence had some massive rant about indie games, and that you know, every day is a big fucking load of bollocks in the games industry, right, in this country on Twitter. And today's was that. Everybody banging on about indie games. I don't care about what I don't even know why I brought it up. So I'm not interested in people talking a load of bollocks. But anyway, this is the year where people have been talking about indie games, and they've become way more part of the general discussion. Whereas this game, which is a fantastic, very, very daft, side-scrolling, roguelike is the wrong turn of phrase, but it changes every single time you play it. And you never know what's coming next, and it's always throwing surprises at you. And every single time that you think that you might be knowing what's coming next, it will just throw something completely random at you. Like you'll end up in space, or you'll end up your characters will be fucking tripping balls on mushrooms or something like that. And it's just got this anarchic sense of humour about it that kind of sets it apart. It's nowhere near as earnest as most games in this space. Games in that space are either quite often trying to be very earnest, what's the word I'm looking for? The word isn't retro, but that's what I mean. Like earnest kind of look backs to the past, or they're trying to get a message or something like that. Whereas this game is just quite happy to be fucking stupid. And I said at the time when we talked about it on the podcast that type of sense of humour definitely appeals to me. And this was just a real treat when I played this. It's genuinely funny, fun to play. And you never know what's coming next every single time you restart it. And highly recommended. It's on Xbox Live Indie Games on 360, but it's also on Steam and PC. It costs next to nothing, like a couple of quid or something like that. And if you like games, you should play it.
I will play it. I know I've said that before. It's really annoying. Is it really as much as £2? Because on Xbox it's 69p.
Oh, well, it's probably even that little. Yeah, it's nothing. It's an absolute cracker.
Yeah, I will set time aside.
It's just so funny.
Yeah, I guess I played the trial ages ago, and I remember thinking I will come back to this, but I mean, you know, I will find time in January.
There's something about it being on PC which legitimises it, I think, which is a shame, because I shouldn't think about that about Xbox Live Indie Games, but I can't help it.
Yeah, well, damn right you shouldn't. Cool. Okay, well, my number 7. This is really weird. I was playing my Xbox 360 yesterday, playing some games, whatever, and I felt I knew that I was missing one game from this list, and I wasn't actively thinking about it. I wasn't constantly thinking I need to find something, and I just felt guided towards, and I almost subconsciously clicked on Special Forces Team X, which is my number 7.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it was really weird. And then as soon as it started booting up, I was like, oh, hang on a minute. I really like this game. Maybe I can talk about this. I jumped into a game at about 1 a.m, because I basically was just sort of pissing around before going to bed. And I ended up playing it until gone 3:30.
Shit.
I thought nobody in a million years would still be playing this because it's multiplayer only. And I was in a game of 10 people for a couple of hours, and it was absolutely terrific. Really, really fantastic. I mean, completely. It's made by oh god, I've forgotten their name. They made Blacklight Retribution. Same.
Zombie.
Zombie. That's right.
Oh no.
Same team. And I'd love to see it arrive on on the current generation of consoles as free to play. I think that'd be really good. As I said at the time, it's a mixture of Gears of War, Borderlands, and Call of Duty. I mean, that's exactly what it is. There's an ingenious map system, which is kind of like a combination lock. So you vote on which sections of the map to change before each match, which is really neat because there's like thousands and thousands of combinations. It's actually a really cool idea. It looks really appealing and colourful, and it's Gears of War, really colourful with the sort of Call of Duty customization options, and it looks a bit like Borderlands. The problem with it is that the audience for action games is split so many times. I mean, they're split by format, and then they're split by the fact that this is nobody's first choice. I mean, everyone who plays this probably plays COD or Battlefield first, and it was never quite cheap enough. So it's just, the fact that there was people playing it on Xbox 360 is really encouraging. And will there ever be a renaissance and people will go back to this in large numbers? I wouldn't count on it, but man, I had fun last night, and it is a really well-made game that just never had a fucking snowball's chance in hell of getting a decent-sized audience together. It was overpriced, I think, and there was too many other games sort of in that space. But it's cool. I just feel bad for it, really.
Was it free or did it cost money?
No, it was originally, I can't remember whether it was 1,200 or 800 points, one of the two, which is it's a little too much at that time because there was... Yeah, it was difficult. If they'd have launched it for 400 points, I mean, I know it was on the sale on Steam and then it was on the sale on Xbox, so I think that might explain why I got into a game with so many people. I say so many, 10, for God's sake. But... yeah, I don't know. It's difficult. The action games have it really rough these days at the end of the console generation. There's too much competition, and there's too much great stuff that costs nothing because it stands up after however many years. But yeah, I mean, Special Forces Team X. If for some reason it goes down in price again, or they do it in a sale, and you've got a few mates who want to get into it, it's really, really worthwhile. Really fun. Really fun.
Okay. Well, my number 6 is a game called 140, which I played on PC. Again, I wouldn't really classify it as underrated because I think anybody who did play it or talk about it actually said it was good. I can't imagine anybody not saying it was good. But I just don't think it got the traction it deserved. It was it's like a puzzle platformer, as so many of these games are. But it was by one of the guys who made Limbo, and it is it looks like Thomas Was Alone, but it's much... It's hard. Everything in the world moves in time to the beat, and much like those levels in Mario where it's like dim 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 and then it changes. It's kind of like that, and things in the level expand and contract, and you move through the level, besting the little platforming sections, and then you try and find little dots which are basically a key, slot them into a semicircle, and then that will change the level, add a layer, basically a track to the tune, and you have new puzzly bits to defeat, and new musical challenges almost, for want of a better turn of phrase again. It's obviously interesting. It's very appealing. Anybody who likes, as you and I do, video games at time with music will probably like it. It's very devious in some ways in some of its platforming, and it's a very short game. It's only about 90 minutes long. It's divided into 3 main levels, but each of the levels ends with the boss, which completely changes the gameplay completely, and all 3 of them are fucking superb. The third one of which is an absolute mindfuck. It involves almost rewiring the way your entire brain works in terms of positional stuff and directional stuff. I don't want to spoil it, and it's almost impossible to explain anyway. But 140 is regularly on Steam for like a couple of quid. Definitely get it if you like that sort of thing, which I think a lot of people do, especially people who listen to this podcast.
I remember you talking about this now when I was going to try and get hold of it on Mac, and I completely forgot about it. I remember writing it down.
That's why I brought it up again.
140. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's just the number. It's not spelled out. It's 140.
140. Yeah. I guess after BPM.
Fuck. Okay. Right. Written down again. I will remember this time.
You'll love it. And it's so small. It's the length of the football match.
Yeah, I remember you saying that as well. Okay, all right, cool. What number was that? Your number 6?
I
Okay, my number 6 is Thunder Wolves, which is a game I played on Xbox 360. It's also on PC and PS3. I won't go on about it. It's yet another dumbass action game that, if you don't like the aesthetics or you don't like the tone of it, that's one thing. But I don't like. Nothing bothers me more than when games that are mechanically sound are kind of dismissed because it works like the clappers. It fundamentally works really well, Thunder Wolves, and it's a shoddy mongrel of a game, but I loved it. It's if you played the fairly recent remake of Choplifter and thought it was underwhelming, this is what you need. This was much more like it. It's completely unconcerned. As I said exactly this at the time, but it's such a throwback in that it's unapologetic about the fact that it's aiming itself exclusively at teenage boys. It's like an old SNES game, and
right.
the whole thing is almost like a Call of Duty gun turret set piece. It's completely easy. But really, really quite enjoyable to play. Everything it's deliberately outdated. The dialogue's stupid. The music is really like retro, but in a kind of really unhip way. And there's a really good local co-op mode on it as well. I really liked it. Nobody knows it exists, and it's a shame. It's really good, dumb, shitty fun.
Yeah, I completely forgot that game existed. Yeah, but I didn't mean to have a go. At least on the trial.
Yeah, download the trial. Thunder Wolves. It's a laugh.
All right. My number 5 is another Platinum game. In fact, it's Anarchy Reigns.
Oh yeah.
Which is exactly what it's like. It's almost difficult to describe. It's just fucking punching things. That's almost what the game is. It's nowhere near as refined as anything else they've ever done. And I'm still kind of unsure why it exists. I guess it exists as some sort of weird pseudo sequel to Mad World, but without that game's striking aesthetics. It's just big belly things, punching stuff, running around arenas, trying to. I'm almost trying to piece together what happens. A lot of the time, you're hanging off the bottom of a helicopter.
Yeah.
There's two different. You play as the guy from Mad World or another guy who may or may not be similar to the guy from Vanquish. It's like Platinum fan service, but it's almost like. I think I described it at this time as imagine they just had a bunch of code left, bits on this guy's computer, another bit of code on that guy's computer, and they just sort of, let's just shove it all together and see if anyone wants to play it. And that's kind of how it feels to me. It was cheap at the time. I'm sure it costs nothing now. I wouldn't say go out and buy it ahead of Bayonetta or Vanquish or Metal Gear or anything like that. But considering how little it costs, it's fucking fun, and the multiplayer was kind of sketchy in many ways, but when it worked, it was a hell of a lot of fun as well. That was just like a big, almost like it reminded me of Power Stone in some ways. It was nowhere near as refined as Power Stone ever was, but just arenas beating things up, kind of a throwback in terms of its like sensibilities, but the gameplay itself was reasonably modern in terms of quick dodge, 3D environments, combos, that sort of thing. Odd game, but kind of cool.
It was odd, but yeah, in the right mood, it was very, very, very fun. But yeah, the most unsophisticated game Platinum have ever made by quite some distance. But yeah, it was fun. I forgot about that. It came out in January, and it was, but they did price it very well. It was £20 new, and I think that was a very smart move.
Yeah, you wouldn't be gutted, but yeah, you'd be gutted if you paid £40.
Yeah, but a very likable package anyway. Okay, my number 5 is another shit action game that's actually quite good. It is Army of Two: The Devil's Cartel.
I knew this was going to appear on your list.
Yeah, this is another. It's very similar to Fuse in that EA spent a lot of money on it, and I'm not 100% certain why they bothered. Because did Army of Two, the second one, make any money? I know the first one was a bit of a sensation because it came out so close to Gears, and there wasn't much stock around, so I don't know. There was a demand for it or something. I don't know. But Army of Two: Devil's Cartel, it's actually quite a lavish game, and they was testing the new Frostbite engine out, and it was, I don't know, you didn't expect to see those kind of production values on a threequel that nobody asked for. But it's the best of the three games. The combat is fast and almost kind of slippery, almost like a first-person shooter. And it's slippery is a great way to describe it because Overkill mode is the most gratuitous gameplay system in any game, probably ever, where you basically turn everything into sort of very, very highly sort of undercranked visuals, loads of blinding light. and you just walk around, and everybody you shoot turns into basically mincemeat in front of you, flinging, their arms fall off, their legs. That footage is destined to play in the background of some BBC News discussion about how games give you AIDS or something. I don't know, but it's possibly one of the dumbest games ever made. But they do it. They constantly make the game interesting by doing things like packing the streets that you're running down and shooting with fireworks, so there's fireworks going, just dumb shit like that. It's definitely not perfect, but again, it is mechanically sound, and it's the most entertaining and well designed of the three games. Not that that's saying a great deal, but yeah, the dialogue and the plot are so generic, it kind of feels like a satire a lot of the time. It revels in how shit it is, and as a fan of the cinematic output of people like Steven Seagal, I really, really responded to it. But even if you don't, as a co-op smash and grab, it's a laugh, and it was kind of weird and felt like the end of an era to play something that dumb, and that something that was so clearly unasked for by anybody, that had that degree of money spent on it. It flopped. It did flop, didn't it?
Almost definitely.
Yeah, but it's another shit action game. I don't want to sound like a broken record, but it was actually really good.
Steve Burns from Video Gamer has quite a funny reading of that game. I can't remember it exactly, but it was something and it was because I haven't played it. But he was something like, he thinks the whole game is, one of them is dying at the beginning of the game, and the whole game's actually like this hallucination on his deathbed, and that's why all this, the overkill mode is the way it is. And the way he described it at the time is quite brilliant, actually. But having not played the game myself, I can't really piece together exactly what he said. But it made me want to play it, as do you when you talk about it.
That makes me want to play it again.
I think he may have written about it in his review on Video Gamer. If not, I'll message him tomorrow and see if he can remember what he said.
I would like to know. I mean, and it's a 5-hour in and out. That's the other good thing about it.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because I'm not going to go back to last gen stuff now because I'm an idiot. But it does sound funny. A game that's not funny is my number 4. It is Metro Last Light, on PC for me, but it's also on the consoles. Again, I guess underrated. We shouldn't call this underrated. It's just stuff that...
No, of course.
Yeah. There are moments in this game which are as good as stuff in Half-Life 2. There are moments in this game which aren't very good at all, which is why it's not revered like Half-Life 2. But there are moments up on the surface, and on PC it looks astounding. Like all Shadowfall good. There are moments on the surface, like there's one extended section on the surface, which is one of the most like draining, exhausting, atmospherically peerless things I've ever played. Unbearable at times. There are moments down in the tunnels that you're completely captivated by what's happening. It's very varied, way more so than its predecessor. You're always doing something different. The gameplay is always changing its style. It does fall into some traps of maybe a turret section too many, a really weird section where one of the like townships that you visit, you just kind of go and end up with this stripper, and she has weird tits. It's just... the whole thing is just really cringeworthy. I'm not one for, you know well that I'm not someone who's going to jump onto social media the second there's a tiny bit of fucking titillation in a game. It's just, it's just fucking, it's not even worth talking about most of the time. But in this game, it's fucking cringeworthy. I was praying my wife didn't walk into the room when that happened, because there was no justification for it. There's nothing that I could say, oh, but narratively, it's just like, yeah, there's just this Russian game where this woman's got her tits out and they look like weird saucers. But apart from the times where it does fall apart slightly, and it's not much, it is a real cracker. And They introduce a lot more specific stealth mechanics into this version. Metro 2033, from what I played, which is probably 2/3 of it, was always quite a ramshackle game and appealing for that. But this is much more sophisticated in its mechanics, very specific stealth. You can knock out all the lights, Splinter Cell style, and really approach every level in that way, or you can go guns blazing. These aren't things that haven't been done before. They have been done before, but within this context, they're done well. And you hear about the studio that they have over there in the Ukraine, and I don't know how much of the story is just fucking urban legend or how much is true. Like, they didn't have any chairs or something ridiculous like that. But nevertheless, you know that they're not in lavish, they're not in Valve or, Ubisoft Montreal. They're definitely really pulling it together, just sort of hacking computers together to be able to create this quite beautiful video game and an impressive game that just I don't think anyone else would really put this much effort into something so dreadful, and I mean that in a positive way. I'll be really interested to see if they do another Metro game, because that series still has the potential to do something utterly astounding. As it is, this is very good.
Yeah, it's still sitting shrink wrapped in my next to my consoles, because for some reason I keep forgetting it's there, and I just, whenever I go to start it, I kind of think,
it's not exactly like the game you were talking about before, which sounds like a laugh a minute for all its lack of subtlety. This, if you've got an hour to kill, it's probably not the game you think, I'll just start Metro Last Light. I'll just start cutting myself 5 minutes afterwards. It's not a happy time.
Yeah, but I still want to play it. I've heard some. I've heard great things.
It's good. It's just finding the time now. It's a shame that the PC version does look fucking great, but now you've been playing games on next gen, it might be tough. It shouldn't be.
I don't have the same.
Yeah, you don't, because you love the Wii on your HD TV. You don't care, which makes you much better than me in that respect.
Fundamentally, a better human being. Yeah, I've just spent the last week playing State of Decay. State of Decay. So I don't really give. The juxtaposition's not a problem for me.
State of Emergency. That's interactive.
Yeah. I never played. Did I play that? I think I did. Did I? I can't remember.
That game genuinely had, you couldn't really tell because it was PS1 graphics, but it had modelled of people that you were supposed to think had Down syndrome running around that you could kill. That was
State of Emergency?
Yeah.
PS2 graphics, you mean?
Yeah, sorry, PS2 graphics. That wasn't a very nice game.
I heard. Did I play it? I can't remember. It's all a fucking mess. That period.
I remember it left me with a strange dissonance, because I thought everything in my mind was telling me this was going to be good. It was Rockstar. It was going to be, and as I was playing, it's like, no, but I'm pretty sure this isn't good. I'm pretty sure this is terrible.
All right. Well, I mean, I can't remember.
I don't. You really shouldn't bother playing it, mate.
I don't think I will. I don't think I will. Okay, well, my number 4 is another action game, but far from a shit one. My number 4 is Splinter Cell Blacklist on all the consoles and PC.
I've got a feeling this would have been on my list had I played it.
Yeah, it's a game that I felt sorry for even before it came out, and I think it's partially because it does kind of feel that Splinter Cell's day has passed. Despite the incredibly smart changes they've made to blend the hardcore old school stealth of the original Splinter Cell games with this linear and slightly milder cinematic action of the like Conviction, it's sort of a 50-50 split. I mean, there was Uncharted inspired action sequences, but then there was brutal stealth sequences that replete with uncompromising checkpoint systems and stuff, and you could experiment a little bit. I thought it was basically an excellent game, but again, this thing with the big budget action games, it feels like there's no audience. It feels like you've got the COD audience and then you've got the Battlefield audience, and they will always go back to those two things. And people are not shelling out £40 for action games anymore, and it didn't sell very well at all. And it has that amazing sheen, the Ubisoft polish that Ubisoft games of the last 3 or 4 years have had, more so than any other publishers in a lot of cases. Just a lot of It looks just right. There didn't feel like there was any bugs. It was a really, really lavish package. And it was an excellent video game, and it had Spies versus Mercs, which should have been the biggest sensation of the year. An absolutely fantastic 3 versus 3 multiplayer from, I think it was from Chaos Theory. I never played it back in the day, but a fantastic online suite, and nobody really gave a shit about it. Even friends of mine who really loved the old Splinter Cell games. It just feels like the ship has sailed with Splinter Cell, and it's a fucking shame because the people that made this game worked their asses off, and they made an excellent game. But you can't compete with the other. Like I said, I think it's pretty much just Call of Duty and Battlefield players that you're sort of going after.
Assassins, but yeah.
Yeah, it's a real shame. Blacklist is a really terrific game, I thought. Really smart as well.
I've always wanted to play it. It just it didn't happen when it came out. But I'm hoping it appears on the Steam sale or something for under a tenner, which is terrible, really, considering it's not even that old. But at that price, I'd definitely grab it.
Yeah, this is another reason it's very fucking annoying that the consoles aren't backwards compatible. Because if this came out in a sale, I'd tell a handful of people we've got to pick it up. And but now the sales are limited to people who have the old consoles, which has made it even worse. That's such a shame, real shame.
Yeah, it really is, and that's definitely one of the major advantages of PC. You know, that thing's backwards compatible for the last decade.
Yeah, true that.
All right, from Blacklist to Blacklight. I talked about it last week on the podcast, Blacklight Retribution, but I still don't know anybody else who's talking about it, reviewing it, playing it. I know we tried to play it recently the other day, and it was a nightmare because it was a laggy piece of shit, but that's the only time that's happened to me. It's been pretty much perfect all the rest of the time. And much like how you described Special Forces Team X, it's just a really kind of affable, likeable shooter. It doesn't have the visual appeal of that game. It's very dark and grubby and, men, and they got fucking glass visors and they got guns. But the mechanics... all that matters is that it's gone decent map design, mechanics are solid, it's fun to play, it has a couple of little innovations here and there, it doesn't cost anything, it's not yelling at you to pay anything at any point. If you want to, the options are there to pay all sorts of money, but never feel like I've needed to in the time that I played it, as I said last week. And I think when it's nowhere near as good as Battlefield, but you know what? I know we had problems with it when we tried to play it the other day, but this game, on all the hours that I put into it for the review, it wasn't kicking me back to dashboard on PS4. It wasn't doing all the stuff that Battlefield's doing. It's just fucking get in the game, right, let's play it. Kill an hour, get a bunch of kills, really solid, understands where the fun is in that specific type of Call of Duty online shooter. It understands where the fun is in that and just goes for that, and everything else is just set dressing almost. If you've got a PS4, just download it. You might like it.
I'm definitely going to return to it. I mean, I had a few games in which that same evening we weren't in the same game, but I was playing and it was fine, and it was really quite... the shooting felt really nice.
Yeah.
So I'll go back to that. I didn't see what the microtransaction structure was like, but I doubt I'd use it anyway.
It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I'm sure.
Genuinely, you even have to go and seek it out. It never even mentions it. They're obviously making enough money because the game's good enough. Like, because if I was in a position where I couldn't afford anything else, or luckily we do get plenty of stuff that we don't have to pay for through work. But if I was in a position where I couldn't afford any more games and I had a PS4, then eventually I might put so many hours into Blacklight that I did end up spending £2 or £3 here and there on a few bits and bobs. And I'm sure that they have enough people doing that to make money. I know that they're making money on this game.
All right, well, good for them because
they're doing it the right way.
Well, I'll play that. I'll probably speak about it.
Hopefully we can get both in a game that's not laggy. I don't know what that's all about, but I have been having a few issues the last couple of days with my PS4. Last night it was downloading patches at PS3 speeds, so bad signs, but I still think it's in the teething period phase, so I'll let it off for now.
Okay. Yeah, cool. All right, okay. Well, my number 3 is a game I'm sure is not on your list. It's the Bureau XCOM Declassified.
No, but I thought it might be on yours.
Keeping you up.
Could you tell? I was masking you, and I suppose it was pretty obvious.
Yeah. I'll be brief. Yeah, I didn't really agree with anything you said. Well, I agreed with some of the stuff you said. There are some really dry, run-of-the-mill standard action sequences in the game. But for something that was hastily assembled from the ashes of another first-person shooter, and basically a Mass Effect 2 clone at that, I thought, again, it was basically excellent. And I just don't know those guys at 2K Marin, when the game didn't sell and they got turfed out and they got disbanded. And I just thought, I don't know what those people must be thinking, because they made a near excellent video game, and that's bad luck. It's because people don't buy action games. That's the fucking problem. They don't pay £40 for action games. I mean, it doesn't warrant comparisons with XCOM Enemy Unknown, but it was far from an insult. I thought the best thing about it was that it felt like a love letter to fans of the series, and it truly, during some of those action scenes, I mean, if you haven't seen it, it's imagine Gears of War, but you're directing your squad around and using all of these powers like XCOM, whilst also taking part in sort of real-time combat. There were parts of it where it really did feel like I was playing an XCOM game. All of that kit, issuing those commands and stuff. I mean, I thought it was thrilling. Pretty much throughout. There were, like I said, a couple of really, really dud sequences. But yeah, unlike you, I really liked the level design. I thought the whole game was really well paced, and there was real variety in the environments, which is you thought it turned into like corridors and stuff, didn't you?
Yeah, big time. I loved it. I really did enjoy the first few hours. When you were sort of battling through sort of iconic Americana, but then it just felt like it just went into space and into grey corridors and spaceships, and the story just went so batshit that I completely lost interest. I didn't think it was terrible, but and I still did think it was a tremendous job considering everything that happened to that game. I always feel sad for the game that they first made, because I always thought that game looked wicked, but I'd never played XCOM. I'd had no attachment to what XCOM was, and so I was never going to have the reaction that the fans had, wrongly, because no positivity can come from a ridiculous reaction like that. But it's such a shame. I think that game, from the makers of Bioshock 2, had so much potential, but they were never able to make it. I say wrongly, in fact, about their reaction, but maybe that reaction is what ended up bringing about the real XCOM game. Hopefully not. Hopefully that was already being made anyway.
It must have been, yeah, of course.
Yeah, well then they are. It's never good to fucking react like that, but then who am I talking to? Kids? Fucking idiots. It always seems like these things are people constantly angry for ages, but most of the time it's just one person. It's just like, fuck you, cunt, and then that's it. They just log off and they're gone to do whatever the hell else they're doing for the rest of the day, and they will not even think about it again. But when you've got 300, 400 people doing that within a day, it looks like it's this constant barrage of abuse, but it's just people not even paying any mind to how fucking revolting they're being, and then just going off and doing whatever the hell else they do.
We should all ignore those people more than we do.
Yeah, and I'm giving them power just by talking about them right now.
Exactly. But yeah, the story was it did sort of go a little bit goofy in the end, but I just thought it was really entertaining, and it did have real love for the IP.
It definitely,
as a fan
it definitely had that.
As somebody who was only really came to XCOM through Enemy Unknown, I felt, I don't know, I really did. I thought very highly of it, and it's a game I've constantly thought about since I played it. Thought about going back to, thought about, there was one DLC pack. I don't remember whether it was, I think it must have been Story DLC, and I was hoping that was going to keep coming, but then shortly after that came out, that 2 came around and got disbanded, and it was just a real terrible shame. I thought it was terrific. I really did, and the corridors that you talk about, I just don't see it. But the final level was underneath a lake, and it was a reskin of an early level, but shimmering underneath all this blue water. And the combat sort of situations were quite sparsely. I don't know. The problems that you had with it, I just didn't have. And again, if you find it for cheap, you can't go wrong. I thought it was really quite something.
I don't think you'll struggle to find it for cheap.
No, that's very true. Shame. Fucking hell. A team of people grafted their asses off to make something that I think is actually excellent, and action games are fucked. That's the problem.
It's amazing that they managed to make that in the amount of time that they had after everything that happened. Amazing. Okay, right. This one's definitely not rated by many people. My number 2 is Beyond Two Souls.
Oh, yeah.
A game that I played for review really, really far in advance of it coming out. I played it. It was for Games TM, and it was a debug version. A good 5 or 6 weeks before the game actually came out. Played it, really enjoyed it. Kind of put it to bed, and expected other people to just like it. I didn't really expect everyone to just fucking jump down its throat and try and stamp on it on the floor and revel in doing so. I genuinely didn't, and I'm not a David Cage apologist, because I thought Fahrenheit was sort of ostensibly terrible, and I thought it had so much potential and just completely squandered it and descended into absolute nonsense. But then really liked Heavy Rain, so I've always been I like what he's done well. I don't like what he hasn't done well. But for me, I always thought Beyond Two Souls. I talked about it with a good friend and one-time podcast guest, Samuel Roberts, who's now just got a job as editor at PC Gamer, which is amazing. But he was the one who commissioned me for the review in the first place, and we kind of talked about it like expecting a sci-fi movie special or a TV. We weren't expecting story-wise for it to be anything revelatory. We was just thinking it was going to be some daft story, but done with kind of guile and skill by a studio that's very good at visuals and amazing at performance capture, and it had a fantastic actress in it. And that's pretty much exactly what I got. I wasn't taking the story hugely seriously, but within that, individual scenes were genuinely quite affecting. Very affecting in some ways, and the fact that you were interacting with them, even in limited fashion. I can only speak from how I felt when I played it, but there were multiple times during Beyond Two Souls, multiple times where I was genuinely either moved or affected or made to think. For example, the scene where you're homeless on the street, that genuinely made me think and put me in a situation that I could have never have been in. The scene where you're I've talked about this one probably the most. The scene that got me the most is where you're preparing for a date, and the broader scene is you're preparing for a date with a guy who's been a douchebag before, and in terms of the overall plot, you could pick holes in it, I guess, but individually within that scene, for most of that scene, you are just a girl panicking about a date that's coming around and what to do, get the food on, get the clothes on. That's a role I've never known. I can obviously there's no relevance to me, so it's really fun for me to experience that within a video game. And then you add on all the other stuff with the fucking Iden guy flying around. I never thought it was a perfect game, but it did so many things that I just found interesting and intriguing. And I would admit, by the end of the game, I kind of almost drifted out of the story ever so slightly, and was kind of enjoying the visuals and kind of floating through towards the end, but nothing about that offended me. Though the extended scene I think it's in the Navajo desert, I would have cut that myself, but it was probably quite an expensive scene. I don't think it really benefited the story. I haven't heard anyone say anything positive about it, and it always seems to be something that the real detractors of the game pick on. I wasn't too keen on that scene, but it was one scene out of however many that are in the game, and I don't know. I just genuinely enjoyed it. It's one of those times where if someone hated it as much as they do, and I know people do, I can't argue with them. Eventually, after 5 minutes of arguing, they go, "No, babe, but it's shit," and I go, "No, but it's like you get nowhere after a while in those types of discussions." I just have to accept it, but know that I had no interest in saying things about this game being good, other than I thought it was good, and I thought other people might like it, which is all I've ever done about a game, any game that I like. So yeah, that's that.
Yeah. For some reason, I completely forgot about Beyond Two Souls, because otherwise it might have been on my list, taking the place of yet another shit action game. But I really liked it too. And again, I never played Fahrenheit, but I did quite like Heavy Rain. And yeah, there were problems with it. I mean, I didn't find. I mean, the thing is, the Navajo family in the desert. That's like a staple of that kind of sort of supernatural horror film. I think. Yeah. I was seeing references to sort of. Stuff like old Stephen King adaptation of Firestarter. The Stephen King adaptation. Yeah. But old 80s action sort of horror movies, supernatural horror movies. There was a lot of references to stuff, and that's a very traditional thing. And there was stuff like that the whole way through it. I mean, I really enjoyed it, and I wasn't expecting great art. I never was. But I think I honestly think you put it perfectly when you said, I don't think any other game should be like this, but I'm very, very glad that this one is like it.
Yeah.
Or something like that.
Yeah, I think I said something along the lines of, not every game has to be like this, but it is good that these ones are. Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird how people. Yeah, I don't know. I mean, if you don't like it, you don't like it. But,
Exactly. I'm more when it comes to anything. And the example I'll bring up here is Dave from Joypod, and has done this podcast, and he's a good friend of ours. He played the game, he finished the game, he didn't like it. That's cool. I mean, of course it's cool. It's interesting to talk about it, and eventually we're not going to arrive at the same viewpoint. What I find a shame is the people who clearly haven't played it, enjoying reveling in kicking in it. If you're a punter, by all means, do whatever the fuck you want. But if you consider yourself a critic or a journalist or even involved in some ways, and that's how you act, then you're shit.
Yeah.
Quite frankly, shit.
I mean, I think that kind of behaviour is something. I mean, we're talking about fucking Matt Lees. I mean, there's no point in that. He went on Twitter and spent hours of his life.
Actually, wasn't, because I've managed to erase him from my mind. But now you bring it up.
Oh, okay. Well, yeah, he spent hours of his life berating. I mean, putting together little morsels that sounded like critiques of the game. It has all the making it. I mean, it was unbelievable. All I think I'm somebody who gets a really bad rap in cinemas because I lose my rag when people talk or when people start, because I just think there's hundreds and hundreds of talented technicians and artists trying to tell you a story. Fucking pay attention. And the fact that somebody went out of their way to try and destroy something so someone told me about it. That's enough for me. I've been doing this for that long. I'm sorry. Yeah, it makes me. That's just disgusting. I'm sorry. It really is.
Yeah, it makes my blood boil. I've done this for 10 years professionally, and that makes my fucking blood boil.
Yeah.
Talking about that cunt, but whatever.
Yeah, me neither. Sorry, I shouldn't have brought it up. Anyway, on to far brighter and better things. My number 2 is a game called The Useful Dead.
All the way up at number 2, nice.
Yeah, it's on Xbox 360 indie games, and it's also on PC, I think Steam, I'm not 100% sure, but it's on PC. The Useful Dead. It's made by a one-man band, and I'm sure his name is Ian Campbell. I should know his name, and I'm 90% sure it's Ian Campbell. He's Canadian, and he goes under the pseudonym Boot Disc Revolution, and he was responsible for Bleed, which I think is possibly what I deem to be the best game ever on Xbox Live indie games, possibly. The Useful Dead is a combination of a platforming game and a puzzle game where you solve a handful of puzzles using the corpses of these colourful cartoony characters. Sometimes you're restrained by how many corpses you can use to solve the puzzle, and sometimes the puzzle is how to commit suicide in the first place. There is zero flab on it. It lasts for about 1 hour, and I'd said this at the time, I must have said the word genius aloud 10 times in an hour. It's idea, see you later. 1 hour, and it costs 69 pence. Nobody knows what this game is. The Useful Dead. I mean, people barely know what Bleed is, but The Useful Dead. I just remember playing and just thinking, what? That is a perfect indie game. It is 1 hour long. It is 69 pence, and it is sheer genius with not a sense of overkill or. Honestly, that guy, Ian Campbell, I don't know. I swear to God, if that guy gets to a point where he's struggling to make ends meet and he abandons game development and goes to get a real job, I promise I'm going to go into politics and get all video games banned because people don't deserve them. If you can't, I mean, this guy. I mean, the man should be doing this. He's made 2 of the best games I don't want to say I've ever played, and no one is really interested. No one's aware. Be aware. Turn on your Xbox 360 or turn on your PC and search for The Useful Dead. It's a completely modest and very simple platformer puzzle game, and it lasts an hour. But God, it's beautiful.
I will play that game. I forgot it existed.
It's an hour.
Yeah, no, I will
exactly.
definitely play that game because I need
1 hour.
Yeah. I really enjoyed Bleed, and I finally got round to playing it, obviously, because it's fucking brilliant. And yeah, I need to do that. That's a thing that I need to do. Berate me until I do it.
It's a concept. Here's a concept. How many ideas can you wring from it? About an hour's worth. That's all, and then it's gone. The guy we should be fucking championing this guy. He should be one of those names that you hear about, like fucking Phil Fish, or all those people that are just like names that are just apparently now exist just to bitch at each other on Twitter.
Yeah,
but I'm telling you,
he's probably not obnoxious.
Yeah, I've actually talked to him a little bit on Twitter when he was. He seems impossibly nice, like a lot of Canadian people. Not to generalise, but The Useful Dead, seek it out.
I will. In fact, I will. Okay. So my number one, my most underrated game of 2013, or whatever the fuck you want to call this, or why did we even do it, is it's actually God of War Ascension on PlayStation 3, a game that I liked more than anybody else, and I will unashamedly say that I'm a huge fan of God of War. I've explained many times about my penchant for all things angry men shouting, kicking things, smashing stuff up. I also love Greek mythology. I love action, combat action games. And when I first played the first God of War, I couldn't believe that such a game existed that was ticking every single box I've had since I was a kid, reading books about the Zodiac and watching He-Man cartoons. Anyway, God of War Ascension came out, and to relatively little fanfare compared to its predecessor, certainly. And I actually thought, at first, the first 5 minutes or so, I was like, I'm not sure about this. I knew there was a multiplayer mode and stuff. In fact, that's always the kind of last like stretches of things that developers do when they run out of ideas. But within a few hours, within the first fucking 10 minutes of Ascension is absolutely staggering. I called it next gen before next gen at the time. I haven't seen it since the PS4's come out, but goodness, it can't be too far off. And the whole level is being moved around by that giant fucking, I'm not even too sure what it is, and then the monster comes and they're fighting each other and you're fighting monsters within that. Fucking forget about it. After that, the game does settle down in terms of its pace, but God of War 3 was an incredibly top-heavy game. It starts unbelievably. A few hours later, there's an unbelievable bit with another Titan, and then for me, compared to 2, certainly, and even compared to 1, it kind of almost petered out over an extended period of time. It needed that third Titan, the third Titan that they just couldn't get into the game. They had to cut it in the end, and you were always expecting it, and it never came. Ascension goes a lot lower after the start and concentrates on combat and puzzles and kind of interesting environments and a story that's a little bit confusing at first, but does eventually start to make sense. And you do feel like they're stretching the Kratos mythos a little bit. So this is the 6th game that he's appeared in, including the PSP games. But it starts to crank back up. You arrive on this island, which is a giant statue of, I'm forgetting who it is now. It might be Apollo. I think it is, but it probably isn't, because I always forget everything these days. And then you work your way up him, and that's something God of War's always done amazingly, having these levels which are just set on incredible, just incredible ideas. It's like the whole level that was the maze on top of the fucking Titan's back in the first game, and in the third game there's levels that are on top of moving Titans, and you're playing them as they're moving. The designers are just they have such great ideas, and this one's not as outlandish as those. But even as you move from the toes of this giant statue all the way up to his head, and you're solving puzzles along the way, and you get abilities that eventually allow you to do stuff like duplicate yourself, so you can have an original Kratos holding a thing and another Kratos moves through. There's some really, really ingenious puzzles in it as you move on, much better than the puzzles in 3. And then it just fucking caps it all off with a boss fight of unbelievable proportions. If you've not got to the end of God of War Ascension and you haven't seen the final boss, YouTube that shit immediately. God of War Ascension final boss, you need to see it, because that is a joke how fucking cool that final boss is. And then it ends. And I thought it was tremendous. They did change the combat ever so slightly. They changed the parry system, which was a little bit upsetting. I probably think that I wish that they hadn't, but they said that they did it because they wanted it to feel like this was a kind of younger Kratos than the one that's in the in the standard 3 games. Maybe that wasn't the right way to go, but nevertheless, I still really enjoyed it. A lot of people got pissed off with a really hard bit towards the end, but all God of War games they have a gauntlet in them towards the end. That's like a trait of the series, and it's a pain in the ass, but it's a God of War trait. And the multiplayer was actually really good fun. It's one of those multiplayers that does everything right and never really managed to get an audience. I'm sure there's still people playing it because that franchise is popular enough and the user base of PS3 is so huge. But it never really almost like the Assassin's one and the Splinter Cell one you talked about earlier. It didn't really capture the public in the way it was. It's a better brawler multiplayer than Anarchy Reigns, and I was talking about that before. But God of War Ascension, it was really fucking good, man. I just thought it was really good, and I thought it was better than 3, not as good as 2.
You thought it was better than 3?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. I can't even remember how. I remember playing through. I think I probably got to around halfway. For some reason, I kept getting stuck on really, really mundane puzzles that I shouldn't have been getting stuck on. And
they're hard. That's
kind of
they were hard. Yeah, there were some real brain scratches in there. But when you they're almost Zelda-esque when you really work them out. I was really impressed by them. I thought it had the best puzzles of all 4.
Okay, I guess I wasn't expecting that. There were a couple of instances where I thought the game had just fucked me, or it was broken or something like that. Right. I remember feeling exactly the same way as how I felt about Gears of War. I can't believe that came out this year. Gears of War.
That was probably my number 11.
What was that called?
Judgment. Gears of War Judgment.
Judgment. That's right. I remember feeling that both of those felt. That felt like Gears of War 3.5, and this felt like God of War 3.5. It didn't. Yeah. I just didn't respond to it. It felt like gaming by numbers. But then again, I've always really, really enjoyed and respected the God of War games, but I've never ever, I wasn't around when 2 was like the greatest thing in history. So I kind of missed it during the golden era. But I don't know. I liked the game enough. I can't even remember what I thought about
YouTube
it.
that final boss just to see it. Right. It's fucking amazing.
You don't remember what the name was?
It's just amazing. What did you say, sorry?
You don't remember what the name of it was?
Just God of War final boss. God of War Ascension final boss. Yeah, easy. Yeah, underwater. It's a thing underwater. Big monster.
Okay. All right, okay. Well, I mean, my number 1, it was only ever one choice. My number 1 is One Finger Death Punch on the Xbox 360. Now, is it available on PC? I don't know.
I'm not sure.
It was on Steam Greenlight. I don't know whether I don't think it made its quota of upvotes or whatever it needs on that service. But yeah, One Finger Death Punch, an incredibly novel, one of a kind, incomparably generous video game that cost 69 pence. Part rhythm action game, part beat 'em up, a taxing and frantic. It's several hundred levels, relentless ideas. I mean, I expected this to break out the way Mount Your Friends did, and it got the coverage. I mean, I got commissioned to do a review for Games TM. There was a review in Edge magazine. Eurogamer put a review up, and it just materialised into absolutely nothing. I spoke to John Fluke, who's one half of Silver Dollar Games, who made it, and he just said that they made a couple of games that are spoofs, like jokes. Like there's one that's called Don't Buy This Game, and it's a telemarketer spoof, so the whole game's in the demo, and it's like he said that sold more than One Finger Death Punch some weeks. It doesn't make any sense. I mean, I don't understand what the fuck you have to do to make a game this good, this unique, this novel, and for 69 pence for it not to sell. I don't understand that. I mean, it can be. I mean, it's just a terrific little game. And I completed it all 300 and whatever levels or 200 and whatever levels. I played it for how many ever hours that was, 5, 6, 7, maybe more. And I have every intention of playing it some more. And every single person I've shown it to, and that's not a small number of people. I've shown it to everybody I've been in contact with who's been in the same room as an Xbox 360 at the same time as they've been in the same room as me, and they've all been kind of awed by it. Because it's completely unique. It's novel, like I said, one of a kind. generous as fuck as well. 69 pence. Why doesn't everyone own it?
They really should. I've still got probably another 100 levels of it to play as well. Brilliant game, truly.
Truly. Like, I mean, just and it was not just. It didn't just undersell. It almost sold nothing. I mean, doesn't make any sense. Try Not to Fart, which is a single button game that Silver Dollar made, sold more. The games they make deliberately to kind of almost to wind people up. Sold more than one thing. I don't understand it. It'll be on my list. Spoilers for my favourite games of the year. And it's just terrific. If you have an Xbox 360, I'm 90% sure it's on PC in some form. I don't know whether it's on Steam, but just Google One Finger Death Punch, and if you have a 360 in your home, just at least download the trial for the love of God.
Fuck yes. Absolutely. Well, I guess that's it.
That is it. That's underrated games or whatever.
10 list of whatever the hell we decided to do. I actually think that I think that ended up being all right. So we're not 100% sure exactly when we're going to record our. It's going to be top 20 each. Jesus, games of the year. We'll rattle through the first 10 each and then do the rest of it properly. But be assured it will be up before the new year. And that'll be a good one. And then we'll be back to the normal shed next year as we career onto episode 100. Ridiculously, I don't know how the hell that's happened. But thank you very much for listening to this nonsense. And let us know. Actually, should have done this before the podcast instead of after. Let us know what you're like underrated, or the game that you think that people haven't been talking about, or one that you just want to big up. Drop us a line on Twitter at Chet and Jon's and tell us what games you think are that. Fucking hell. Just tell us things that you like and talk to us. Why not? Oh, also, there's a YouTube channel. It's Chet and Jon on YouTube. Chet and Jon, it is on that. Tweet us, iTunes review us, YouTube us, fucking Snapchat us, Bebo us, MySpace us. Fuck.
Do check out the YouTube channel. But I just want thank you to everybody who's left us a review on iTunes. I checked. Someone was kind enough. 2 people, I think, were kind enough to leave a review the other day or last week at some point. Within probably, I think it was less than 3 hours, we were in the top 10. So that's how iTunes works. It doesn't work. 2 user reviews and you're in the top 10. So it's unspeakably shit that it's not an accurate representation of what's doing well and what isn't. But hey ho, that's happening. We appreciate that. If you haven't left an iTunes review, we'd really appreciate it, because it does give us exposure for however long we stay in the top 10, which is a day or something. And it does all help, I think. Absolutely. Who knows? Maybe it doesn't help. Does. Oh, it does. Okay, I mean, but I always thought it does. But thank you very much for listening. We might be back next week in some form. Not 100% sure, but if not, we'll be back shortly. So have a wonderful Christmas, and we'll speak to you soonish.
Soonish.
See you later.
Was that us?
I don't think so.
Ray?
Had to be some sort of psi energy pulse. Substantial. A significant collected and centralized necromantic convulsion, level 7 or more.
Agreed. We need EMF measurement checks now.
I know the answer, but I'm going to ask anyway. Is a level 7, whatever, bad or very bad?
On a scale of 1 to 10, I would say...
Let me guess. It's a 7.
Let's just say we're about to get real busy.